Welcome. Thank you all for coming. It's a fantastic day. It's a fantastic venue. It's always a venue that tempts delegates. We nearly lost some of our scientific advisory board when they realised they were walking through the Aardman animation on the way up. But we managed to bring them all and rally them here. As the director, actually I'm not going to play a really big part in today because we have some esteemed colleagues, friends and guests who are going to speak to you. But it is my job to be the sort of general factotum and master of ceremonies. So in order to kick that process off, of course, I've got to do the housekeeping. We have brought you here. We've given you the chance to come and see all of the exciting things that the Biomedical Research Centre will do, both for the population of Bristol, but for our patients nationally and arguably internationally. It's a unique coming together of a series of experts in particular clinical areas who are then linked and given added value by working with colleagues, particularly in our world-leading population health sciences, to really drive the agenda and to take ideas through to bringing direct patient benefit. And you're going to hear from each component of the Biomedical Research Centre as the day progresses. So you're all very welcome. I need to tell you the fire exit route. If there is a fire, there will be a loud siren. We're not expecting a practice, so if it goes off, it's for real. The fire exits are on either side of the room. Toilets are to your left, so through that door over there. If anyone's busy in the audience tweeting, I'm told the hashtag is hashtag Bristol BRC launch. And you'll have spied the cameras. We are filming and live streaming the event. So what you say, what you ask, I guess if you're in the audience, it won't necessarily appear on screen, but we can all play our part and live stream to a much greater community. We've got some exciting art activities going on. There is a tremendous installation at the back that I would ask you all to go and have a look at. It's a really, really exciting one called Making the Invisible Visible, which is the work of an artist called Sophie Layton, who's worked with a cardiovascular researcher, Giovanni Biglioni, and it provides insights into congenital heart disease. So these are the malformations of the heart that unfortunate children are born with and which our expert cardiovascular surgeons have to operate on to give these children a prospect of as normal a life as possible. Throughout the day, there'll be stations in the room and elsewhere where our researchers will be available. I'll be available. Anyone from the BRC is available. If you've got questions, please don't hesitate to come up and ask any of us. And if we don't know the answer, we'll steer you in the direction of someone that does. The final bit of art that's going on is at the back. We have an artist who's going to create a graphic of the whole day. We did this once before. We had an Academy of Medical Sciences event over at MShed, and it was fantastic. They even managed to get good cartoon likenesses of some of the speakers. And we will then want to make that publicly available as a means in which the whole day has been captured in real time. And I'm sure you don't mind folk coming up and asking you as you're busy sketching away, do you? Yeah, you'll tell them to go away if you have to concentrate. All right, that's great. Okay. And that's Sam at the back who's doing the graphic facilitation. I think I'm going to leave it there. We've invited a number of people to really come and catalyse this opening. As I said, esteemed colleagues and friends, including Robert Woolley, who's the Chief Exec of Bristol Hospitals Trust, and our Vice-Chancellor, Hugh Brady. And then after they've spoken, I'll ask our special guest, Russell Hamilton. I'll introduce Russell and ask him to formally open our BRC. So without further ado, Robert.
Thank you, John, and can I say I am delighted to be here. I was very pleased to be asked to join Hugh in welcoming you to the BRC Launch Symposium today, and I think it is a really significant milestone in the phenomenal progress that the partnership between the NHS and the university around clinical research has been making over the years that I've been leading University Hospitals Bristol NHS Foundation Trust. And we have deliberately focused on that partnership, and we continue to work very hard to keep that partnership real and alive at the very top of our institution. So I'm meeting regularly with John and with his colleagues about our mutual interests in research and education. And the progress that has been made is phenomenal. The BRC, I think, is the jewel in the crown example of that progress, and is part of a tripling of NIHR grant income in the last 5 years. We've doubled commercial income. We've increased the number of patients going through clinical trials, and this is so different to how it was 8 or 10 years ago. Bristol is very firmly on the map of clinical research. So we have a great partnership. We have made and continue to make great progress, and we need to accelerate that progress. You could be forgiven for watching the media, reading the papers, and thinking that the biggest problem facing our society today is Brexit. I don't concur with that view. I think, from where I stand, the biggest problem we face is how we are going to care for ourselves, our children, our parents, in healthy communities for this generation and generations to come. And I don't think that we have a system at the minute that is well organised to do that, and I don't think we are exploiting the potential of clinical research yet to its maximum extent to make real changes to the health and well-being of the population. So the strength of the BRC, the reason it came to be awarded is because of our focus in the partnership on the unique strengths of Bristol in clinical research. And I don't need to tell you what they are because you are in the themes doing them. So I'm very proud that UH Bristol hosts the BRC, but of course I'm not just here as a representative of UH Bristol, I'm here as a representative of all NHS partners in the themes and of that fantastic partnership that is represented in the work that you do for the benefit of all the people we care about and our communities, and indeed for the wider population nationally and internationally now and in the future. So I hope you have a very productive day today. I'm going to hand over to Hugh. Hugh.
Thank you, Robert. Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. For those of you who don't know my background, I took over as Vice Chancellor of the University of Bristol about almost 2.5 years ago. But I am a nephrologist by training, and that journey took me, as you can probably tell from my accent, from Dublin through training in clinical nephrology in Toronto, and then the faculty of Harvard Medical School for approximately 10 years, back to Dublin and then to Bristol. I am no longer licensed, no longer insured, and the logical follow-on, I no longer practice, nor should I. So if you need dialysis today, look elsewhere. But I am passionate and remain passionate about translational research and its power to deliver better services and better outcomes for our patients, and that's, at the end of the day, why we are all here. Robert mentioned the changing landscape over 10 or so years. This is a personal event for me, not just because of my role, I suppose, as Vice Chancellor of the University, but in 2006, when NIHR was formed, one of the first programs to be rolled out was the BRC program. And I had the honour and pleasure of being on that first review team on a battle bus chaired by, and a committee chaired by John Saville, looking at the applications. And I thought, even at that time, as my memory of it, and forgive me, Russell, if this is inaccurate, but indulge me, it was very much about building on a very strong health research base in the UK, and particularly trying to achieve or build on critical mass and establish excellence. But very importantly, to look at the strength of the relationship between the university research base and NHS partners. And trying to achieve a health research enterprise where the sum, where the totality was greater than the sum of the component parts. And again, with an eye on better services and better outcomes. And it was, again, I can say this because I was an outsider at the time, it was a somewhat controversial process, but I would reassure you, very rigorous. Most of the big beasts got funded, but interestingly, some of them only just, and only after reassurances, for example, that the relationship between the university and its NHS partners was robust enough and strong enough. Some specialist research centres got funded, particularly in London, based again on this issue of critical mass. There weren't many regional centres, and I think it's fair to say that Bristol wasn't hardly on the map. I'm not sure if Bristol even applied. And I say that because, again, picking up on Robert's point, where you collectively have taken the university and the trust relationship and the research programme from 2006 to now, it is literally night and day, and it is so exciting to see and to feel the momentum, to look at what you've already achieved together, but even more importantly, the ambition that you have articulated for this BRC. So congratulations to all of you who have been involved in the process so far. And I know, having gone through similar processes, I'm sure the last 6 months or 9 months was challenging. Many of you in this room are already established world leaders in your field. And what this is about is challenging each other and challenging the collective to see what can we achieve working together that we would not be able to achieve working in isolation. And that's particularly important for city regions such as Bristol, where if you look at our scale, despite our fantastic expertise and impressive outputs in many areas, scale-wise we're relatively small. So partnership, the nature of the partnership, the onus is on us to make our partnership between the university and the NHS stronger and more productive than any other in the country. And perhaps even the next phase is what other partnerships do we need to form either within the region, whether that's Cardiff, for example, within the country and internationally, to ensure that we position ourselves for success in the future. For those of you who might still be skeptical about the model and you need to do these things, well, I suppose you'll just have to live with it because this is the way the funders think. I myself am a great believer in it, but it is the way increasingly funders think, looking appropriately, in my view, for that added value. Finally, I should compliment NIHR on the way that the program has evolved because, again, as intimated by Robert, I mean, it's only 10 to 12 years old, but look at what it has achieved and how it has established. It's part of the furniture, part of the national infrastructure, but actually now seen as such an exciting example of best practice internationally. I'm particularly thrilled, not just about the totality of this program, but some of the areas where we have a competitive edge, and I'm not going to name them all, but two, I will select out. One, surgical innovation, where we have already so much world-leading expertise and an opportunity to do so much more in establishing ourselves, or not establishing ourselves, but building our international reputation in that area. And secondly, I suppose, whereas in 2006 it was mainly about translation particularly from the laboratory to the clinic, I'm delighted to see that so much of this application and so much of this centre is now that translation and bidirectional translation from population health into clinical research. And again, an area where we, as a city region and as a university NHS partnership, have so much to offer and have a growing international reputation in that area. So congratulations again to everybody involved. I'm thrilled to be here on a personal and professional basis, professional both as a medic and professional as a Vice-Chancellor. I'd urge you to be ambitious for this centre and in as much as you can at an event like this, think, I know you have to bed in the programme, but of course once you secure funding for one programme, the natural cycle in the world of grant getting is, okay, what's next? But look at what a fantastic foundation that you have established. And I, for one, am confident that the future for our partnership and our centre is extremely bright. So thank you for inviting me to this very special occasion.
Thank you very much, Hugh and Robert. Hugh referred to a somewhat controversial process, and I guess if you're going to challenge large universities and institutes to achieve more and to gain added value, you need to have a pretty singular vision and drive, and I would say that absolutely characterises our next guest, Dr. Russell Hamilton, CBE. So Russell has kindly agreed to join us. If I say he's an old friend, that makes it sound like he's elderly. He's not. What I mean is we've known him for a long time. Russell has played a really crucial part in the genesis and the delivery of the NIHR from 2006 onwards with Dame Sally Davies, and those of us that used to go on visits to the NIHR would know that rather fearsome double act that they played when one had to go and discuss programs and projects. He was born in Australia and actually did a degree in biochemistry and then came to London where he did a PhD and an MBA. And one of the reasons that he's an old friend is that he then cut his teeth in the southwest, where he came to Bristol to be the R&D manager for the Southwest Regional Health Authority. Working here, Russell established with colleagues both in the university and the NHS multidisciplinary sort of collaborative models of working to deliver academic development and research for patient benefit. And I kind of like to think that maybe that was part of the model ultimately for the NIHR and the BRCs. But he moved on to London then, in a sort of meteoric career, became Director of R&D for the South of England and then the whole of the UK. And he played a central role, as I've said, in 2006 in the creation of the NIHR. So this is the NHS's research funding arm. And Russell was responsible for policy, for strategy, and for oversight of NIHR funding schemes. And he was responsible for its budget of well over £1 billion per year. He was absolutely pivotal in the development and the delivery of the Biomedical Research Unit and Biomedical Research Centre concepts and their establishment, and obviously had the wit to ask Hugh to join him on the battle bus, for which many thanks. He was involved in a whole series of national activities and has been a major player in the development of funding schemes, not just with the NIHR, but contributing to funding schemes organised by other bodies, including charities and the MRC. And he was awarded CBE in 2010. So as an architect, a major architect of the NIHR BRC programme, and one who is known and loved locally, who better to ask but to come and say a few words to open our BRC. Russell, you are very welcome.
Oh dear. I told him not to go on about it, but he only rarely does what I ask, so there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a real pleasure to join you today to officially launch the NIHR Bristol Biomedical Research Centre. It's, as has been said several times, just over 10 years ago that Dame Sally Davies and I, with colleagues in the Department of Health and a number of key people in this room, created the National Institute for Health Research, NIHR. And one of the first things we did was to establish biomedical research centres. And the reason is important. At that time, in 2006, the UK had a number of outstanding universities with world-leading strengths in basic biomedical science. It also had outstanding NHS organisations delivering primary, secondary, tertiary care. But the advances and discoveries that were being made in basic science were not being translated swiftly and consistently into tangible benefits for patients. And that was a problem. So we set up biomedical research centres across the country with the specific purpose of bridging that gap, taking the results of research from the campus to the clinic for the benefit of patients. All NIHR biomedical research centres have three key aims. First, to drive innovation in the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of ill health. Second, to translate advances in basic research into benefits for patients. And thirdly, and importantly, to provide a key component of the NHS contribution to this country's international competitiveness by making the best research centres even better. Because of their importance, both to NIHR and to the country, biomedical research centres receive the largest amounts of funding that NIHR awards. As you might imagine, and as Hugh alluded to, one of the process for awarding BRC status is something of an understatement I've written down, extremely rigorous and highly competitive. It's therefore an outstanding achievement, credit to everybody here, that in the most recent competition, Bristol was awarded an NIHR Biomedical Research Centre with funding of £21 million. Now, I don't know about you, but even in the Department of Health, £21 million, a lot of money. One of the things that's characterised NIHR is that it's always supported innovative processes and approaches to tackling issues. And it is my personal view that the Bristol BRC represents one of the most creative and innovative approaches in seeking to improve health by drawing on a wide spectrum of research. The overall strategy of the NIHR Bristol BRC is, quote, to harness the power of clinical and population science across the life course to improve patient and population health. In my view, this broad approach, which integrates large-scale studies on patients and populations with laboratory-based discovery science and state-of-the-art genomics, has the potential to have a major impact on people's health, not just in Bristol, but across the world. And I don't usually exaggerate. This approach of bringing together different research groups, each with different research traditions, can be a challenge, but the added value of it can be enormous. I'm in the fortunate position of personally knowing John Iredale and all the theme leads, and I'm confident that if anyone can rise to that challenge with your help, they can. One of the main reasons NIHR established biomedical research centres was to forge strong partnerships between outstanding NHS organisations and our leading universities. The Bristol BRC is a great example of that. It's a partnership between University Hospitals Bristol NHS Foundation Trust and the University of Bristol. And that partnership is incredibly important. Without it, a BRC might be just another research institute, potentially isolated from the NHS. That's not the case in Bristol. There's always been a strong tradition of partnership working across health, care and academic institutions in Bristol and the South West. And I'm pleased to see that the NIHR Bristol BRC is building on that strong tradition. Before coming here today, I spoke to Louise Wood and Tony Sotirio about what the Department of Health is now looking for BRCs over the next 5 years. They said they're looking for three things, which fall neatly under the letters BRC. The first is boldness. It's extremely difficult to become a BRC, but once you've been awarded BRC status, there is an extraordinary amount of flexibility in how to take forward the research to deliver your aims. So use that flexibility. Be bold. The second is reach. Because it's a partnership between the university and the trust, BRC already has considerable reach, but it will only achieve its maximum impact if it reaches out to other organisations, other sources of funding, to get further and wider translation and adoption of research findings. The third is collaboration. The BRC already involves a number of key academic groups in the University of Bristol, key elements of the NHS locally. But the scope of its activities should not be limited only to the people that are set out on the grant application, the funding contract. Wider collaboration is crucial to maximising the strength and breadth of research and its contribution to improving people's health. So, BRC, boldness, reach, and collaboration. Bristol has an outstanding track record of excellence in health research, and this BRC builds directly on that. I look forward to watching its progress and hearing of its achievements over the coming months and years. Thank you.